Alright, welcome back to another engine rebuild video. This one's going to be relatively short and sweet, just covering the timing chain cover replacement and some other bolt-in stuff. So here there's one stud in this arrangement. I've got, if you can see, some white stuff on it, that's Permatex thread sealer with the PTFE, because that goes into a coolant channel there. So I've got a brand new stud in here, and I'm going to use the 2-nut method to get the stud tightened up. So you essentially just screw the 2 nuts on it and grab the outer one. They kind of clamp together there and just tighten them down just so I can get the thread in. Not really gronking down on the stud like I did in the head. You don't want to get it too tight. There's no real reason to do that. Once I'm happy, just back off one and they both will just slip off. Get the timing, or get the gasket sealant on there. It's the gasket cinch stuff that I use throughout the rebuild process. Getting that on the engine plate there, and then putting the paper gasket up, and then also using the gasket cinch on the outside of that paper gasket. Stuff seemed to hold up really well for the little bit that I've run the engine so far. Then of course the next thing is going to be for the timing chain cover itself. Here you got to worry about the spring. You might be able to see there I've got a Allen wrench in my hand just to move the spring out of the way, the tensioner spring that's in the inside there. It's a little tricky, but not too bad. You can definitely feel if you're properly connected and it's out of the way or not. You can kind of see when this first goes on, it might be a little crooked. That kind of tells me that spring's putting tension on the chain and not behind it. When I pulled this thing off, the tensioner was definitely not in the right spot. Just kind of seating that well with the mallet there, getting that tensioner all covered on the chain and everything like that. And then there's little guide pins that help to put it on. And then putting the nut on that one stud, going around with bolts on everything else. And then the engine cover plate, that front cover plate, something unique to me anyway, is it uses screws instead of bolts to connect to the front engine plate. Essentially what I figured out was the rule of thumb is if you're only screwing into the engine plate and not into the block anywhere, then it just uses those big large pan head screws. If you're going into the block or the head, then it's using bolts. You got to watch in this case because the very, very bottom 1 or 2 bolts goes into the front engine block sealing plate, which is it's either aluminum or just some non-strong metal. You got to watch. That stuff is very easy to strip out. Even going up to bringing it up to the torque specification. So I was pretty gentle with it here, and just snugging everything up, running around at trying to jump opposite sides like you would put on a tire, just to make sure I've got even clamping force and the thing doesn't get crooked. Especially again when you got that timing chain spring tensioner in there, you want to make sure that thing doesn't get crooked at all. Just trying to keep everything tightened up. No real torque spec on the screws that I could find. The bolts are not real torqued to that much. I don't remember, 15, 18 foot-pounds is not that much. And again, that bottom bolt or 2 that goes into that sealing block, very careful with that to make sure that you don't strip those out and wreck that piece of metal. But otherwise, the timing chain cover goes on pretty simply. It's not a whole lot to it. Now, because it's been a day or two, the head bolts, I'm just going around and rechecking the torque on those in the appropriate tightening pattern, just to come back on, because you'll get some relaxation along that. I did a pretty detailed torque theory blog post on my blog. You can look that up. I'll try to get a link in the description for that stuff that we use in the Navy, that the Navy uses for torque. Now I'll put the rocker arm assembly in. This you got to go in straight with this thing because of the guide studs on it. Sometimes also make sure you get your rocker arms and your push rods aligned before you get this thing tightened down. I may or may not have gotten one of the rocker arms kind of behind a push rod and gotten the thing all tightened down, had to undo it and do it all over again. So just getting the nuts down here, and again I'm going to get these down to torque, get them all snugged up, get them down to the appropriate torque, and do them kind of opposite just to make sure I've got a nice even clamping force and that I don't cock the thing or put it in crooked at all. Not too difficult with this. And get those tightened down. No problems with those. And then to the crankshaft pulley. Put a little bit of lubrication on the seal of that. You can see that red stuff. That's that engine lubricant that I use just to make it a little easier to get in there. Use the mallet to get it fully seated. It is keyed on the crankshaft, so you can't put it in the wrong way. put the nut on. The nut's a very high torque, and then the engine's going to spin right away. I got to wait until the engine gets more assembled before I torque that thing down. And everything still spins, so that's a beautiful thing. All right, that's all for today. Thanks for watching. Cheers.